Welcome to Notable Approvals. I am attorney Amanda Shaffer. Uh, of course, the first thing I always say, make sure you like us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of that. But before I do get to the notable case today, normally I don't talk about politics on these things, but I feel like what happened yesterday, just want to say that that was a rough day for all of us here in the U.S. And what's ironic for me is normally when I see things like that happen, it's when I'm researching an asylum case and I'm talking about political asylum for another country that's not a democracy or has a fake democracy and has all those problems. So to see it in this country was quite scary and a little embarrassing and shameful. Hello, Emmanuel. Thank you for joining us today. But I do also, I want to say something positive as well, and that is that although it looked like a lot of people, it really wasn't that many people in comparison to what the Black Lives Matter protests and the Women's March protests, what they brought out. It is a small, unfortunately, not so small segment of our population here in the U.S., but hopefully that won't happen again, and we've learned our lesson. But on behalf of all of American citizens watching, it was really shameful for me to watch, and hopefully we'll never have to see anything like that in this country again, because what I do every single day is fight for my clients who have to deal with that back in the countries that they're from, so that they don't have to have those types of issues. And it's another reason why we have to be so careful with misinformation and make sure that you're getting your news from proper news sources. So I just wanted to throw that in there. It's not really related to what we're talking about today, but I felt compelled because never have we ever seen this in any of our lifetimes. So moving on. Today's case is about a client who is a native and citizen of Indonesia. She came here when she was only 10 years old on a B2 visitor visa. She applied for DACA before she turned 18. And what that does is if you're here and out of lawful immigration status before you turn 18, you're not accruing unlawful presence. So you're not in lawful status, but you're not accruing unlawful presence. And that's important because unlawful presence accruing is what leads to that 3-year bar, 10-year bar, why people need waivers. So if you were able to apply for DACA and before you turned 18, then you cut off before they start accruing unlawful presence. So it gets confusing because she wasn't here in lawful status this whole time, but she didn't have any accruing of unlawful presence, no days counted towards that. So, and that's a good thing, and I'll explain why. For her, for some people it doesn't matter, like immediate relatives, but for her it did. So ever since she's gotten DACA, she's renewed it every single time. I think we've renewed it like 4 times already. In 2012, her stepfather, her birth father had passed away, her mother remarried, and her stepfather has a green card, and he filed an I-130 alien relative petition for her back in 2012. Because she wasn't an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen and the visa numbers weren't current, it took a while before we finally got that approval. It wasn't until 2018 we got the approval. But since she didn't have lawful immigration status and wasn't an immediate relative, that meant she could not do an adjustment of status to get her green card in the U.S. She had to leave the U.S., go to Jakarta in Indonesia, in the embassy there, have her visa interview, and then she came back and come back as a permanent resident. And one of the most important things that we had to make sure she had with her is proof of all her DACA approvals to show that there was never any period of time that after she turned 18 that she didn't have DACA. And the reason is, if there was a period of time, then she would have needed an I-601 waiver of inadmissibility. And we had submitted everything with the I-130. I think we also, when we did the NVC process, we submitted it to them. And she gets to Indonesia and they weren't satisfied with what they had. And we were like, this is like, we had approval notices and we had her work permits. So we're like, maybe, it's just not a clear copy. I don't know. We sent them to her again. And so she ended up going to the visa interview, it took a couple of extra weeks than she thought. It was a little, stressful during those few weeks because we knew that she didn't go out of status, but it doesn't mean the embassy is going to do their job properly and realize, DACA isn't as well known in Indonesia. So fortunately, that all worked out. They saw she was in lawful status, didn't need a waiver, and she ended up being outside of the US for about a month, and then she was able to re-enter without a problem. So I really enjoy this case and like to talk about it because it's one of the most positive things about DACA. Even though DACA doesn't give you permanent status, what it does do is it can, if you were able to apply for it before you turned 18, it would stop that clock of accruing unlawful presence. And we actually have a lot of, not a lot, but a handful of cases going on right now, even where there's a similar situation where the client does, even if someone entered without inspection, they'd still have to, if they entered without inspection and married a U.S. citizen, right? They would have to leave the U.S. to get a green card. They don't need a 601A waiver of inadmissibility if they were on DACA. Since, from the time before they turned 18 until the time that they're leaving the country to go to the visa interview. So I know I'm saying this, and a lot of you are, anyone who's applying now for DACA initially is thinking, if I could have applied back then, I would have applied back then, or knew I would have applied back then. It's not open to people right now who are under 18, but if you do have DACA and you're in that position and you thought you couldn't apply, well, you probably can. It does help. It also helps you can get an advance parole, and that changes the whole game. She couldn't get it. I think she still could get advance parole then, and I think, yes, we did get her an advance parole as a backup. And then there was that time period that they weren't allowing advance paroles. So she at least knew, like, at the very worst case scenario, she could still get back into the country where all her family was in her entire life. So if you have DACA and you're wondering if you're eligible to get a green card, or if you're wondering if you're eligible in general, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our phone number, email address at the bottom of the screen. You can also message us on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching. I check it all. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget, like us, follow us, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Twitter, so you don't miss another live. And everybody stay safe out there. Let's treat everybody with respect, and let's be proud of our democracy and our election process. And let's all hope and pray for a smooth transition of power in, 13 days. That is all. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.